onto my channel. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. If you don't know me, I'm Andrea and you are welcome to my channel called Andrea's Encounters. I travel around the world and it's something that I absolutely love to do. I am back to London and I was actually thinking a couple of days ago, I lived in Australia and I'm now back to London where I lived my past 4 years. I'm not English, I'm Italian. I moved here 4 years ago. I left my country when I was 22 years old. Little intro about me. Now, I'm in my t-shirt, not because in London is getting warmer, absolutely not. Forget about it, it's not that the case. I've just been ill for like 3 days for the weekend. Not nice at all. I had to take some antibiotics. Today is my last day of taking that and I'm so happy to stop it because it's just awful. What I want to talk about today is, don't mind my camera, I try to change the angle sometimes because I don't like to be too much boring even though I'm still filming in my room. Here's the thing, I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. I lived in Australia and I lived in England. And they're both English-speaking countries, but they're so different from each other, totally different. Let's start from the language. It is English, but it's more like an Australian English, right? Now, let's leave the fact that the accent is totally different. Now, let's talk about words, because I had to learn a new English in Australia, kind of. They use different words where in England they use probably, if I want to ask you how are you, but in a more common way here in England they would say how are you doing. So you say I'm doing good, I'm doing fine, I'm doing okay. It means you're okay. In Australia I found out that the way they say this, it's how are you going. So how are you going? And I was like, what? What do you mean? How am I going? Then it took me a couple of, I say weeks more than days to understand that that was actually the equivalent of how you doing. Got that? I was okay, but I still had to learn new words, like literally new words. Like stockings, which is tights and socks in English from England, they would say hosieries, which is the same meaning, but I never heard that before here. Second thing is public transport. Alright, here in England they've got the underground, which they call a train, and they've got buses with basically there's the upper deck. Very famous English buses. In Australia, it was so funny for me because I was like, is that a joke? They basically have the same things but just all the way around. So the buses are just on one level and the trains are on 2 levels. So there is the upper deck for the trains. And I was like, what is going on here? So different. Third thing, well, I would say money. In Australia they have plastic money. And literally feeling it, it was so weird. Do you know the Monopoly money? That was kind of the same feeling. Simply because what I think is the real reason, Sydney and most of the cities in Australia are around the coast. So what I think is that it might have happened that people were going to take a swim or surfing and they forgot their money in their pockets. That's the closest thing I can think of. In England they just recently introduced a £5 note in plastic because we had an issue that it was so common to basically make it fake. So we had some issues with notes and they decided to make the fiver in plastic to make it harder to make it probably like fake. Another thing I would say is food. Food in England, food in Australia. I'm just putting myself comfortable a little bit. I'm a bit tight here. Food in Australia. I've noticed, well, I lived in Sydney and I've noticed there's such a big influence, like an Asian influence in Australia. So wherever you go around and you want to have something to eat, you literally have all different Asian cuisines all around it. Yeah, Vietnamese culture, like Vietnamese cuisine, Thai cuisine, Korean cuisine, Japanese cuisine, Taiwanese cuisine. Never had it in my life. I tried it for the first time there in Australia and I loved it. Chinese cuisine, common everywhere. Then there's also like Malaysian, very nice. Indian, very nice too. So I tried many different cuisines and I loved it. That's probably where I started to be curious about traveling in these countries to see what it tastes like. Because here's the thing, I'm Italian and Italians are famous for pizza, spaghetti and many other things. But I've noticed that the pizza when you go abroad, it's totally different. It's not the same as when you have it at home back in your country. And I was curious to see what's like a Vietnamese rice paper rolls tastes like in Vietnam. This is when I went to Vietnam. Easy. In England, food in England, what I will say is very common to find is kebab shops, fried chicken shops, and Indian shops too. Doing grocery shoppings in Australia and in England is pretty much similar. You might find different products, obviously they're not the same brands and everything, but here is one point, a good point for England, because you find loads of Poundland shop or 99p shops where everything they sell in the shop is only £1 or 99p. It's the more common once you go out of the central, like the central London, because I would say more common South London, East London, not as common in West and Northwest London. I've lived in Northwest London and I didn't see many, not as much as when I was living in East London and now that I'm back to South London. Another thing which is Australia is famous for, or well, what people talk about the most about Australia is animals. Okay, here's the thing, Australia is such a big country comparing to UK in general. So the majority of the population is based on the coast. All around it there's just nature and green everywhere, literally everywhere. And in England it's not as common unless you really go out of London. So it's very common whenever you have nature around you to find animals. They probably share the same space as you. In England, well, in London I would say it's not as common. The animals you find here are squirrels and foxes. Foxes at night. If you see your bin probably with all the food on the floor and everything, you might have thought that some, like, I don't know, cat or dog would have opened it. No, that was a fox. This is why you need to make sure that you close properly the bag and you put it into the bin and you close it, because if you leave it just a tiny bit open, you're gonna find a mess the next day. Literally, my personal experience. In Australia you find a lot of animals. Well, when I was living in the city, like literally in the city, the only thing I could find it was cockroaches, and if you would go to Hyde Park in Sydney, I would find some possums or maybe some mouses, something like that. There are a lot of birds, but that's not the major things. You will find a lot of birds, different species of birds in Australia, which are very common as pigeons in Europe. Then if, let's say if you go outside of the city, I lived in Northern Beaches as well with my parents. We were in DY literally, and it was a beautiful place because we were just literally 10 minutes away from the beach. Loved it. But there is a tiny little thing, more nature equivalent to more animals, and it happens that sometimes, well, let's say you don't really leave your windows open or your door open if you don't really like animals coming in your house. When I say animals, I mean majority are insects, and insects in Australia they're quite bigger than usual. Sometimes it happened that in my house we had to kill, I think, I'm sorry to say kill if anyone loves animals, but trust me, we didn't want to, but this particular one is so hard to catch. I'm no jokes. It's like the huntsman. The huntsman is like a big spider like this. this big, and it's alright, it's not venomous, so that's why we didn't want to kill it. But literally it is so fast, it's impossible to catch it, and we just had to kill it. I'm sorry, we had to. We had cockroaches in our kitchen, and I found that in the creepiest way ever. I was going there for like a cup of water, and it was dark, and I started seeing something, little things crawling on the top of the kitchen counter. Put the lights on, cockroaches, little tiny cockroaches running everywhere. Ugh, disgusting. But people are used to it, and you will get used to it once you go there. It's nothing that, yes, majority of animals there, they can kill you, but I'm still here after 12 months, alive. I never got bitten, I never had anything. I'm cool. This was the thing about the differences between UK and Australia. Very funny, because once you live these two experiences, you actually understand that things are different, even though people speak the same language or anything, because at the end of the day, every country manages things in a different way, and it's called evolution. So they evolved in different ways. Guys, if you like this video, if you like my other videos, let me know by subscribing. Hit that button there, and you're gonna see my face right here, that little circle there, my face there. Click on it, subscribe. And if you have anything to share about this topic, comment down below. Like. And for this is everything. Bye, have a good day, and have a great life.